Got it. Yo, 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 yo. All right. We are now looking at the Fidelity and Guarantee homepage right now. Today, what I'm going to be going over is just the illustrations here for you guys as new agents, just so you guys can keep watching these videos back. You can learn, pretty simply, just keep rewinding this video. That way we don't have to keep going over this here. But I guess we'll start here. I'll just go. Basically, when you're logging into Fidelity here, you're going to go to the Fidelity and Guarantee login. You're going to click on F&G sales link. So this is directly going to take you to that portal that I was just on here. And then your agent ID here, you're going to get that, once you get contracted, you're going to get your agent ID. You just fill this in here. You could auto save it. You got your password, type that in, submit. It's going to log you into their homepage. Um, First things first, we'll look at here is this business tab here. So what we're going to be looking at is your book of business you could view here. So when you click on this, I'm not going to click on all this now because this isn't the important stuff, but book of business is where you're going to view all your clients that you have in there. Commissions, this is where you're going to see all your commission statements, what's paid out, what hasn't yet, stuff that's pending. Next would be new business. This is where you're going to be able to track like if there's any requirements, pending requirements with anything. Because with F&G, there's a lot more than just, submitting it on the spot. You're going to have to, do telephone interviews with these people potentially. There's going to be just more requirements. They might need updated illustrations, and it's everything that you need to know is going to be under this new business tab. So just daily check on your new business tab, see what's going on with all your policies, just be organized. It's very, very simple in here. Next part is your agents. Obviously, once you guys start recruiting teams, building a business here, you're going to want to be looking at this tab. You can see your appointment process. So every time you get a new state, you're going to have to get appointed with them by F&G before you could actually legally sell in that state once you get the license. Administrative, this is where you're just going to be able to view all your agents, their, producer numbers, their whole book of business, all of that. That way you have complete access over everything. You can kind of bird's eye view everything here. Um, what we're mainly going to be looking at here today is under the sales tool tab. This is going to be for illustrations we're going to be looking at. And then forms and materials, the online application, which I will go over here too. But first things first, we'll go into the illustration. So click the sales tools, illustrations here. And then once you do that, you're going to click on F&G Life Illustrations. This is for annuities, so this is not where we're going to be looking because primarily we're running Index Universal Life. So you click Explore Illustrations here. It's going to bring you to a new page. And then we're going to start a new case. Any other cases that you have with illustrations that you may be needing for any other previous cases that you may have been on sits for, this is where you're going to find those. But new cases, you're going to click on this here. Now, we'll say Joe Schmo is our client here. Joe Schmo. And his birthday is December 2nd of 1985, which makes him 39. He's a male. Just input simple stuff here. Case description, you guys are always going to want to put a case description here. You're going to get lost if you're making a bunch of illustrations on sits with all these people and you're not labeling who you're talking to and what the illustration is. You're going to have to go back in, create a new illustration. It's a headache. So, when you're on the phone with them, obviously all these people's names are different. So you can just organize it, right? Joe Schmoes, nest egg plan, right? This is basically just going to allow you to stay more organized in this here. Make sure you don't lose, any of your progress, anything you're tracking here. State, you just select whatever state they're in. This is the residing state, so whatever address their home is in. Like if they say they're in California right now, but they don't live there, you're not going to select California. So whatever state they live in is where you're gonna choose. Product type, there's only one, is the Index Universal Life. So obviously that. You're going to find available products. Now, These are the four products that F&G has to offer here. The ones we're going to be using is going to be F&G Path Setter. So what you're going to do is it's going to be the third one down here, F&G Path Setter. You're going to click select for quotes and illustrations here. It's going to bring you to the next page. And this is where we're going to start building out the policy for the client. So let's say we're on a sit now. The client is viewing this page here because now you're sharing your screen with the client. They're going to see everything you're going over. You're going to put in their first name, last name, gender, date of birth, and then the next thing would be the underwriting class. So once you get all this here, and then obviously this here says owner different than insured. If they're trying to get this policy on somebody else that isn't the person that's obviously speaking to you, they're going to be different. So you'd want to select this here, and you can see it's going to, bring up a different owner's name, but Joe Schmo's the owner here, so we don't have to click that. But when you're going through the process here and you're now sharing your screen on this, what you're going to do is, let's say for instance, now you're on the phone. You're gonna say, hey Joe, like, are you able to see my screen here? Is this popping up? Can you see all these rate classes that are showing up on my screen here that I'm scrolling through? Joe Schmo says yes. It's like perfect. Okay, so what's gonna happen here is simply Fidelity is going to come back with one of these many rate classes, right? Now, you're pretty healthy from what we've gone over so far. So, hopefully they can come back with a preferred or a standard, non-tobacco. Obviously you have to ask them if they're a tobacco user first, which you're going to ask before this. But let's say Joe's non-tobacco user, you're going to go on this here. So you're going to say the importance of us submitting an application is because these illustrations are going to be different for each one of these different rate classes here. So these numbers are going to look different. So basically what we're going to have to do here is, submit the application to see which one they are going to be offering you. But since you are pretty healthy, I'm just going to show you the standard non-tobacco. Obviously, I hope they can come back with the preferred, and I'm just going to do this for the sake of the illustration because I'd rather them, come back with better news versus me showing you preferred with better numbers. And then, for some reason they come back with a standard rating, and now I have to be the bearer of bad news and, give you worse numbers. So I'm just going to show you the standard. Okay, Joe? Joe goes, yes. Okay, perfect. That makes sense. So you select the standard non-tobacco. Next, you're going to solve for, okay? So there's a couple different things we can do here. I'll just go over the most frequent ones, and I'm just going to click one of them for the sake of the illustration. But let's say somebody's wanting to see what it looks like if they're taking money out, visually, and they're saying they're just being a hard ass, and I want to see what it looks like if I'm actually taking it out, even though withdrawals are stupid. We're going to go over that. Loans is pretty much the way you want to go with these policies because they're the most safe, and withdrawals just stunts your growth of your policy. So there's no need to do that. But max accumulation is going to be focused on your cash value growth, and then income is going to be showing when they're taking out at a certain age, how much they're going to be withdrawing with the monthly budget that they're putting in. But for this one, we're just going to show maximum accumulation. There's not going to be anything taken out. I'm just going to show you the cash value account just growing as we go down. So usually we're going to select max accumulation for this solve for here. And then what happens after that is this is going to pop up. This solve for, you're just going to leave this on the face. You're not going to change this. You don't want to solve for premium. You're just going to solve for the face amount. Next thing here, pay premium to. It says Y100. You can see here when you click this little I, it's going to say note to indicate age, type A, the age A65, right? Indicate policy year, Y20, 20 years of the policy. Basically, what this means is when you're going through this, you're going to ask, Joe Schmo, I'm going to say, hey, Joe, typically most of our clients, what they like to do is, they like to pay to the age of 65, 70, kind of right around the age when they're ready to retire. In my opinion, I say, paying for as long as you can is probably the most beneficial for you because the more money you're going to put into the policy, the more growth you're going to see. But obviously that's not for everyone, but this is your policy and we're here to, build this for you, something that's going to make the most sense for you. But I guess for you and yourself, did you have like a certain timeline in mind that you wanted to pay this policy for? Did you have a certain amount of years? Did you want to pay for life? And then you pause, let them respond. Oh, I'll just pay for life. It sounds like it makes the most sense. And it's like, okay, perfect. When they want to pay for life, you could just leave this Y100, right? Because it's 100 years of policy payments. Nobody's living that long. So 100 years of policy payments. Let's say they, wanted to pay to the age of 65, right? 65. You just type that in, super simple. It's going to illustrate and stop putting money in on the illustration at the age of 65. It's going to demonstrate them, being done paying. But for this one, that Joe Schmo wants to pay for life because he's got Big Daddy bucks. So we're going to say year 100. This minimum non-mech death benefit here, we are not going to click this on here unless we're going option B for some of these. And it depends on kind of what they're looking for exactly. But I'd say a good majority of the time, 99% of the time, you're not clicking this minimum non-mech death benefit. So make sure that this box is not clicked. Next thing is your specified premiums. So when you go and click on this here, this is going to show you the top duplicate entries for how many years. If you just click one here, you just want to leave it on all because it's only going to fill in 1 year of premiums for the monthly premiums, which is not going to be good for this illustration. So you're just going to leave it on all because it's going to autofill every single box for the rest of the policy. Let's say Joe Schmo is rolling in dough and he wants to put in $2,000 a month. Okay. Big money, big sales for you guys. Next would be mode. This is just basically what they want to pay. So we're going to go over this in more training sessions, whether or not a client should pay annually, whether or not they should pay monthly. Usually you should bring it up because if a client's going to pay annually, you guys are going to get paid the full amount, no cap advance. There's not going to be a specific amount that they're capping you at. Client pays annually, you get your entire commission check upfront annually. There's no cap advance, so you're just going to get it all up front. But typically, I'd say most of our clients that we're going to be working with are paying monthly. So mode, usually just leave it on monthly here, right? Joe's putting in $2,000 a month. Once you do that, make sure it's, autofills in here. You can see you're going to click OK. After that, scroll down here. We got to get rid of this. Too many things on the screen. Get rid of that here. Next, your death benefit option, you're going to want to make sure this is on option A, unless, like I mentioned, they're being a stickler, then that goes on option B sometimes. But when you're going through these sales processes, talking to these people, you are not going to want to mention this even. You're just going to default leave this on A, show them, unless they seem like they know what they're talking about. Just always leave it on A. Or if they're comparing to an IUL or investments that they could do on the side, something that they're comparing this with rather than just looking into something to invest their money because they saw it online. It's going to be option A. Nothing here. You don't want to click the change face amount. You don't want to reduce the death benefit to minimum here. Premium outlay or whatever's going on here, you don't got to click lump sum. Most people aren't putting lump sums into their policies. So if that, comes up or rises on a call, just get one of us. We'll help you with that. But all this here, just you can leave this alone. These markets, it's already allocated in here into BlackRock and Morgan Stanley. So you're just going to leave this for the illustration. You don't need to change it. But let's say you're sharing your screen with them here. You're going to be going through the presentation. You're going to go and say, depends if they're like pretty incompetent, you don't really need to go over this type of stuff with these people. But if they seem like they're pretty competent, they're understanding, they're yep, super quick responding to you. You could even go over this here. You're going to scroll down and then you can explain, hey, these are the markets, you have access to. The way these markets work is you could actually change where your money is allocated every single year. You can't just change it 6 months into the market, right? It doesn't work like that. So every single year they do have access to change. You could, put this at 25%, 25%, 25%, 25, 50-50. You could put 100% in one of them, 33, 33, 34, however what you want to do it. But there's 100% that could be divvied up between any of these markets. So you could even ask them like, hey man, I'm not too sure how market savvy you are, but if you, pay attention to the market and you just think one market's going to perform better than the other, you have the complete authority to, move where your money's being allocated with your cash value. And then you can let them know, obviously, Fidelity, they are the investors. They're going to be the ones that are doing the investing for you. You're not going to have to worry about looking at the stock market, seeing which stocks are doing good, where your money's got to go. You're just letting them know what market you want them to put the money into. But for the sake of the illustration, never change it. Just leave it 50% Morgan Stanley, 50% BlackRock. Just don't touch that, leave that there, but you can explain it to them. Unless they're like, obviously telling you like, hey, can you put it in Morgan Stanley at annual point to point 110% like participation rate? It's like, sure, okay, then you do it for them. But most of the time, they're not going to bat an eye on this. It's not that deep. You just leave this like this. Down here, loans and withdrawals, you don't really need to show this. You can just leave this how it is. And then there's nothing down here once you scroll down. This is unnecessary stuff that's already, filled in. You don't got to do. Now, once you filled all of this out here, everything's looking good. What you're going to do is you're going to come back up to the top. You're going to click this button that says View in Print Illustration. Okay. You see this purple bar that's going to load down here. It's going to load up the illustration for you. Just give it 1 second. Sometimes it likes to take its sweet time. Alrighty, and then when you come here, this is just the front page of it. So what we're gonna do is, when you're talking to the client, it's just, hey, I'm scrolling through. You don't even have to say anything. Most times they're just gonna look at your screen, stay silent until you say something because you're the expert. You're scrolling through trying to find what you gotta find. But this is the front page. First thing you're gonna scroll down to here is going to be right after the first page. It's gonna show you their face amount right here on the right side. It's going to show you their death benefit. Make sure it's option A level. It's going to show you, oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. What is going on here? Hold on 1 second. I think when I exited out, I didn't hit save. That's probably why. Uh-oh. Load slow. Oh, shoot. All right, there we go. All right, so first thing we're going to look at here is this face amount. Face amount's going to be $495,937 to start off with the policy here. Um, the way you're going to explain this is, once you're looking at this, you're going to say, hey, this is how much you're going to be receiving in permanent coverage with that $500 monthly. Obviously, your policy will surpass that at some point if you keep paying on that. your death benefit is not going to be the same. As your cash value grows, your death benefit is going to keep rising as well. So you're not going to be stuck here, but at least to start the policy, you're going to have, $500,000 in coverage that's going to be there for you. God forbid you were to pass away. So let's say you only paid, 1 year of premium payments and you passed away, God forbid, you only paid $6,000 into the policy. Your family's going to be receiving a $500,000 check from Fidelity, and that's going to be no tax, no court, no probate, complete clean cut check to the family, no issues. Life insurance is a non-taxable event, so you're not going to have to worry about, jumping through hoops to do any of that. And Fidelity is a great company, so they're going to pay out within 24 hours. There's not going to be any hassles with that. And this is your initial premium, $500 a month, right? Make sure that's all correct. Next, you're going to scroll down slightly here, right? Just a little bit. You're going to come to the 7-pay premium. So when you're explaining the 7-pay premium to your client here on the phone, what you're going to do is you're going to say, "Hey, Joe, when you fill that ad out online and your goal was to, access money while you're still alive, tax-free, not have to pay taxes on it, what they're going to do, the IRS, is they're going to look at your policy to make sure that you are not ever going above this number here. Because if you go above this $32,783.84 a year with investments on your cash value without buying more life insurance than this $495,937, that's where it's going to start raising flags with the IRS, and they're going to see that and they're going to say, "Hey, this is an investment, not a life insurance policy." It becomes a modified endowment contract. They call it a MEC. MEC is the abbreviation, but it is a modified endowment contract. Basically, what that means is they're now able to tax your gains. It is no longer tax-free like we are trying to structure here for these IULs. And then you can even let John know. You're going to say, "Hey, I'm your agent. I'm going to be here with you. I'm not going to let this happen." Obviously, we know how to structure these policies so that doesn't ever happen. You're not going to have to worry about that. Fidelity is always going to be there to make sure that you're not having to come into that position and have to deal with paying taxes on that. But pretty much, this is always going to be here for you. So if you ever want to overinvest, right, you're only investing $6,000 on a year, you still have room to invest up to $32,000 without having to purchase more life insurance that can go straight into the cash value account to earn you more cash value. So you just let them know that. And then if you ever want to get more, put more money in on a yearly basis than that 32,000, all you have to do is get more life insurance. Does that make sense, Joe? Yes, it does. And then for you guys, what we're going to look at is going to be this target premium. So this is higher than what it is coming out to, right? 500 times 12 is 6,000. So it's illustrating higher. How your pay is going to work. If it's lower than this, let's say you're doing a different type of policy, sometimes it comes out a couple $100 less than if you were to multiply 500 times 12. Sometimes it's 5,400. But what target premium means is you're going to multiply that by your commission. So whatever commission you are, you multiply that by the 6,000 and then you multiply that by 0.8. And that's because we have an 80% advance. So you multiply 6,000 by your commission. And then after you get that number, you multiply that number by 0.8, and that is now your advance that you're going to be receiving. As long as it's under the cap advance, you're going to get it all. If your policy is really big and you sell a big policy, your cap advance, might cap you out. You might not get it all. Even if it says it's 80%, it might not work like that. So it really just depends. Shoot. Alrighty. And then next thing we're going to scroll here to is going to be, you can skip all this here. You can see these page numbers as we're scrolling here. Page 7 of 25, right? We're still going. These are just markets that we're gonna, if they ask any questions on this, right? This is just the markets showing the previous years, look back 20 years, shows Morgan Stanley, BlackRock, Barclays, all these here. It's going to show you those markets, how they've performed. This one's S&P, showing how the S&P's performed over the last 20 years here. Now, this is the next and most important section here. So these riders are going to be free with this policy. You're not going to have to, your clients don't have to pay extra for this. This comes along with the policy with their monthly premium that they're paying and the insurance costs. But basically, what this is going to mean is that this accelerated benefit for critical illness. So if you ever become critically ill for any reason, you get sick, and you need the money, right? They got hospital bills they got to pay. They've got kids to take care of. They're out of work. They've got mortgage. They've got bills. Bills don't go away when you get sick. They're always there. You got to make that stress that on them. Even though most people know it, and I know it seems like it's very simple, straightforward, yada yada. Oh, I don't want to say that. It's just so straightforward. I mean, I know it, so that means they must know it. No, you got to be direct with these people. People need to be spoken to. Even if they understand it, they're still going to sit there and listen, and they're going to appreciate you for breaking this down to them like this. The more direct you are, the more real you are with these people, the more fine-tune and in print with this you are. You don't want to make it fine-tune, in print, and confusing, but the more detailed you get on this, the more emotional you make this for them. Like, hey, what happens when you pass away and there's nothing there to pay for those bills, right? You're going to have your critical illness rider, you have a $500,000 policy, they're going to give you 100% of your death benefit up front as long as it's underneath $1 million. So Joe Schmo, he gets critically ill. He's got 2 years left to live or a year left to live. He doesn't want to work anymore. He's got bills he's got to pay. Now Joe's got $500,000 in his bank account for his family to pay those bills, do whatever he wants with it. All that money is his now, completely tax-free because it is a life insurance policy. Next would be accelerated benefits for terminal illness, 100% similar to the critical illness. After that is going to be your chronic illness rider. Obviously, chronic is going to be a lot less severe than terminal and critical. So you're going to get the chronic illness is going to be 25% of the policy's death benefit up front, of that $500,000 in this instance here. And they're going to be able to utilize that for bills. Maybe they need rehab, hospital, whatever they need. That money is theirs. They can do anything they want with it. If they want to go buy a Ferrari, they can go buy a Ferrari. That money is theirs. It is not specific to anything whatsoever for bills, but it is there to supplement it. And that's pretty much the factor of it and why people would want living benefits. Now, this is going to be what we're going to be looking at pretty much with the numbers when you're breaking this down to the clients here. And the way you guys are going to want to break this down is you do not want to make this seem confusing to them, because I know you as a new agent might be looking at this. I was confused as hell when I first looked at this. And realistically, it is not that confusing. You just need to make these people feel safe. You need to make them feel calm. This shouldn't be a huge decision for these people to make like this, right? As long as you make these numbers make sense to them, they should be like, oh, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Yeah, I completely understand. You did a great job. That is what you need to hear every single time you are talking to these people, because this is not that difficult to understand. And the way you do this is you start here. You're going to say, okay, listen, I know there's a lot of numbers on the screen right now, but I promise you this is not as difficult as it looks. Okay, I'm going to break this down for you really simply here, okay? So this left column, you see where my cursor's hovering over? This is going to be your age of the year of that policy. So, right, you're going to be 40 years old the first year of the policy. Second year, you're going to be 41. Third year, you're 42. Fourth year, you're 43. You see that here? Yes, Joe understands this column here now is your age. Very simple, right? It seems very self-explanatory, but when you break this down, step by step like this, they're going to understand it. It's not going to be as confusing to them. It's a lot less numbers just displayed on their screen for absolutely no reason. Next, you move over to the next column. You're going to say, okay, this column is the year of the policy, which means this is your first year. This one's your second year. This one's your third year of the policy. This is the fourth year of the policy. Make sense so far, Joe? Yes, it does. Perfect. Now, this column is your planned premium outlay. What this means is you're putting in $500 a month is what this is illustrating. 500 times 12 equals 6,000. So it's illustrating that every year of that policy at the age 40, year one, you're putting in 6,000. Age 41, year two, you're putting in 6,000. Just keeps going down. You could break it down to them like that. You're putting in $6,000 a year. Now, this column here, guaranteed assumptions. You say, remember, Joe, how I mentioned earlier in the call how these policies have a 0% floor? basically, if the market ever crashes or if it's ever in a down year, you're not going to have to worry about losing money in your cash value because you are protected by this safety net with the 0% floor. And actually, Joe, it is not just 0%, it's 0.25%. So even if the market is down in negative 20, right, negative 20% on the year, you're still going to be earning 0.25% interest on your cash value. So while people are losing money in the market, you're still earning money even though the market's down, which most people don't do. So you're going to take a look here. Obviously, these numbers aren't going to look very good, but you're going to say, hey, Joe, this is the guaranteed column. This is only illustrating if the market was to crash 10 years in a row. Obviously, that's very unrealistic. That's not going to happen. The market is not going to be gone down for 10 years, but this is just a hypothetical. God forbid, you were to put money into this and the market did crash for 10 years, you're still going to be earning money cash value wise, and you are going to have the death benefits still. So it's still going to be there for you. And then you say, Joe, this middle column is going to be the exact same as this right column here. The only difference is this one is showing a 4.75% interest rate, and the one to the right is showing a 6.14% interest rate. Now, Joe, we're going to look at the right column here because a 6.14% interest rate is a lot more realistic than the one in the middle here. I'd say typically the market hovers around an 8 to 10% on the year. So this is even a little bit lower. So these numbers could be higher, depending on how the market does. But for this illustration, they are going to show you something lower just because they'd rather, under promise and over deliver versus over promise and under deliver, right? So you show them here, you're going to say, hey, Joe, you've put in $6,000 in the first year. Your net death benefit's going to be at $495,000, right? Like I mentioned earlier, you pass away, your family gets all that money completely tax-free, even though you've only put $6,000 into the policy, okay? Does that make sense? Do you see how your death benefit's always going to be here every single year of the policy? Joe says yes. Okay, perfect. Next account we're going to look at here is going to be your account value. This column is your cash value. So in the first year, you could see it is going to grow a little bit slower because it is the beginning stages of your policy, right? These policies need compound interest. They need time. They need time to build. These policies, you could borrow against them whenever you'd like. There's no early withdrawal penalty like a 401k. They're not going to do anything like that for you. If you need the money, if it's an emergency, you're always going to have access to your account value, and that is going to be here for you to access whenever need be. But like I recommend, you do not want to touch this in the beginning stages because that's when it's doing the most growth. You need money in there to compound, right? You have $1 million in a bank account versus $50,000 in a bank account growing at a 4% interest rate. Who's going to make more money at the end of the day? It's going to be the account with $1 million in it because 4% of 1 million is a lot more than 4% of 50,000. So you explain to them, you need your money growing in this account. You do not want to touch it until, it's grown substantially. So you want to wait a little bit before you touch it. But obviously, if you need it, it's still there, Joe. Okay. Yes, makes sense. Perfect. So now if we take a look here, Joe, we're 10 years into the policy. You've put around $60,000 into this policy here. Your cash value is now at around $49,000. So you can have access to this. You could use this if you'd like. You could let it keep growing. You could do whatever you want. But this is your cash value that you have access to. And you are still holding this $495,000 death benefit while gaining this cash value here. Okay, Joe, does that make sense? Yes, it does. Okay, perfect. Now, if we take a look here, another 10 years down the line, at the age of 59, you would have put in $120,000, and now your cash value is sitting at around $162,000, and your death benefit here is still $495,000. So if you do pass away, your family still gets all that money. This is your net death benefit. A lot of times, agents are going to ask, is your net death benefit and your cash value paid out to the beneficiary? No, it is not. Your cash value is put into the net death benefit already there. That's why it is called a net death benefit. So if you pass away, this is all the money that your family receives. But this is the money that you have access to in the account value while you're alive if you want to access it. Okay. Joe says yes. Okay, perfect. All right, Joe. Now look, now we're at the age of 69, another 10 years down the line. This is your retirement age. This is where you have, money that you're probably going to want to start pulling out because you're getting ready to retire and you need money to supplement that, okay? So what we're going to see here is you putting in around $180,000 now at this point. Your account value is going to grow to $391,000 and your death benefit's going to be $495,000, okay? You can see, are these numbers making sense? Yes, they are. Scroll down. You're going to say, okay, John, now look, we're in your 70s here. We're in your 80s, right? You just keep going down the list. You keep showing them. And then you say, listen, John, you live a long, healthy life. Let's say you live into your 90s, right? You've put $300,000 in after, the age of 89. Your account value is just at 1.8 million and your death benefit is now 1.8 million. You can see here at the age of 70, it's 495,937, which is what it was the entire length of the policy. Now his death benefit is climbing because his cash value is increasing the death benefit. So now at this point, you can see these numbers are going to go up. They're going to keep going up. They're going to keep going up, keep going up. And then at this point, like I mentioned, 89, $300,000 in 1.8 million, 1.8 million death benefit. Okay. Once you explain this, you're going to say, John, I know that was a little bit of information I put at you, but I told you it was going to be easy, right? Just from what we've gone over, is all of this making sense so far? Do you have any questions on anything that I've gone over? No, I don't have any questions on it. You did a perfect job explaining it. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Perfect sounds good. Whatever, you get that over with. Next thing I'm going to explain to you, John, is going to be the loans and withdrawals, okay? So there's two different types of ways you can go about accessing this account value here, okay? So let's say now you're at the age of 70, you're getting ready to retire, you want to access this money while you're still alive. What you're going to do is there's two ways you can go about it. You can take a loan or you can take a withdrawal. Okay, a withdraw, what that's going to do, let's say you want to take $10,000 out of your cash value. That's going to place you back, right? Obviously, it's growing a lot here, so I can't really illustrate that here. We'll scroll up. Let's say you want to take out $7,000 of cash value at the age of 49. We're back at the top of the policy now. That is going to put you back to $42,000 and kind of kick you back a year. So when you withdraw money, you are actually taking that money out of your account value, putting it in your pockets, and now you are stunting the growth of your policy when you withdraw. Okay. That is why I don't recommend the withdrawals, but I do want to mention it because it is still something you could do with your policy. Now, the better system that we're going to go through here is going to be the loan system. Okay. What the loan system is, there's two types of loans. This is where people say they're going to become their own bank in a sense, because rather than taking a loan from a bank, you're taking a loan from your policy and you're being your own bank. Hence the name, be your own bank. Okay. So let's say you want to take a loan for $7,000, right? Instead of you taking a withdrawal, right? They put you back at $42,000. What's going to happen is there's two different types of loans. There's a variable loan and there's a fixed loan, okay? A fixed loan is what that means is they're going to put that $7,000 that you want to take out, they're going to put it into a fixed account that is going to grow at 3%, okay? So they take it out, they put it in a fixed account, it grows at 3%. Now, your loan interest rate on a fixed loan is also 3%. So what that means is you have one account growing at 3%, your loan rate's at 3%. What is that? That's the same level, right? That means that you're not having to pay any interest on your loan. It is guaranteed. Fixed is guaranteed. It is guaranteed to happen that you are going to earn 3% in that account because it is fixed. You are guaranteed that your loan interest rate is 3%, which makes it a wash loan. Okay, so that is the safest way to take a loan and owe zero interest on any loans that you take. Now, there have been cases where people do not pay their loans back. And what happens when you don't pay your loan back, rather than your loan accruing interest, taking a loan from the bank and then getting passed on to your family and debt gets passed on, what happens is Joe's got a $495,000 death benefit. So when Joe wants to go and take a loan and he doesn't pay it back, if he passes away, it's going to subtract the $7,000 from his $495,000 death benefit. And guess what? Now his family gets $492,000 instead of not $488,000 instead of $495,000 because he took that $7,000 loan. So it's pretty much a safe-proof way to take loans without having to worry about paying them back. There's no contingency. Obviously, the quicker you pay your loan back, your account value is going to grow better, which is why you would still want to pay it back. But worst case scenario, you can't pay it back. Your death benefit is going to be your safety net there to know that if you can't pay it back, there's still something that's in place. Okay. That's the fixed loan. Now, a variable loan, you want to mention, you're going to say, Joe, a variable loan, it could be a strong play, but it could also be very risky. So a variable loan, the interest rate rather than 3% with a fixed loan is going to be 5%. It is going to be higher. Okay. But if the market is to do better than that, let's say like that, like I mentioned earlier in the call, because this is different from this, and we're going to go over this in script training. But earlier in the call, you would have already mentioned there's a 0% floor. You would have already mentioned there's a 12% cap. So if the market does 13% on the year, the insurance company keeps that extra percentage. You only get your 12% gains. So with that 12% cap, let's say the market caps, right? That year does really great. You took a variable loan that year for the $7,000. That interest rate's at 5%. Your loan is at 12%, or your cash value grew at 12% that year. You now have a 7% spread on that loan, which is actually paying off that loan without you even having to reach into your pockets, put the money back into the policy, and dig around, put the money back in there. That's your money. It's just growing with the variable loan. Yes, it is risky, right? There's a lot of upside to it because it could pay off the loan that you took without you having to do anything. But the downside, why it's risky, is they do have a 0% floor still, so it's not super risky like that. But still, if you're taking that loan and it's at 5%, you could potentially be owing 4.75% on that loan, right? Because it's the 0.25% floor. So if the market crashes and does 0% that year, you could potentially owe money on that loan, which is why it is more risky. Okay, Joe? So if you were to take a variable loan, if you're savvy with the market and you think it's a strong play, go ahead, be my guest, or maybe meet with a financial analyst who's going to analyze the market for the year, make sure that they could find something that, would be a good year for you to do that, because variable loans are very strong plays. But I'd say typically, Joe, most of our clients are going to be taking fixed loans because it is guaranteed 100% of the time to owe zero interest on any of the loans that you take. And same thing, like I mentioned, you don't pay the loan back even with the variable loan, still subtracted from your net death benefit. So it is still a safe proof option when it comes to taking loans. Joe says, okay, perfect. All this makes sense. You did a very great job explaining. Perfect. You transition into the application. This will just be for the illustration, so we'll sign this off here. We'll do another one for the application another day. But yeah, study this, go over it, become a master at it. When you talk to these people on the phones, you need to sound convincing. Your tone needs to go up, down all the time. You got to be constantly moving. The better you get at talking, the better you familiarize yourself with this here, the better you're going to be, the more sales you're going to make. I promise you, when you are direct, you are, enunciating yourself like I'm speaking right now. You don't want to be, sitting here slouched over in your chair. You don't want to be like this. You don't want to talk about your account value, your net death benefit. You got to be up, chest out, enunciate, get your voice out there. You need to speak to these people like you are an expert. If you're not speaking like you're an expert, you're losing. You need to speak like you're an expert to these people. They need to think that you know exactly what you're talking about. Even if you don't know what you're talking about, you still need to sound like you do. And that all comes from in here, how you speak, how you carry yourself, how you use your words. Okay? So that's pretty much it for this here. Yeah, we'll go over some other stuff in some other videos, but we'll finish this one up here.